Oh god, what happened? Is this a bit? Are we starting a new one of these? Ugh, I hate bits. They're a pain in the ass to animate. Yeah, the irony isn't lost on me that I'm complaining about animation when I refuse to even animate this girl's mouth. So while I float in an empty void, we might as well talk about something that's more vacuous than even this literal abyss. That's right, it's time to explore that wealth of wish fulfillment wank known only as Isekai. So follow me as I discuss trends, history, and cobble together a meta-narrative that allows me to confirm my preconceived notions about the industry and these series. And today's franchise is a shining beacon of just how shallow the industry can be, by wearing its gimmick on its sleeve, piss-poor animation, and desperately clinging to a trend. Let's see just how far the genre can stretch its already tapped well of ideas. We're looking at Isekai Cheat Magician. There you are, you little fucker. Get over here. You win this round. No fake-outs this time. We're legitimately back in familiar territory. Starting as a web novel on Shousetsuka ni Naro back in 2012, where it's still being released to this day. I'm not sure why authors continue writing on Shousetsuka after their series are picked up for publishing, as you'd think they'd want to focus on the product that's actually making them money, but that's just me. Granted, web novels are rough as hell compared to their light novel counterparts, and plots get changed or scrapped entirely when making the change, which makes it look like they're publishing their rough drafts? Not a good look. Anyway, the usual song and dance applies here. Popularity ensued, leading to this series getting grabbed by Shufu no Tomo in 2013. Which is a little funny, as that company's name translates to housewife's friend, and here picked up a harem-filled shonen wankfest. So after a year, it started on Shousetsuka ni Naro, got adapted into a light novel, sticking with the theme we've been seeing, but we're most get a manga and anime adaptation a year or two after that. It took this series 3 and 6 years for each respectively. I can't really speak much to popularity, as finding sales figures for this is damn near impossible, but as of March 2020, its latest volume was selling decently well, but that's to be expected after an anime adaptation, because as we've seen with this series, people generally pick up the source material at a greater rate once they've seen the anime, usually with sales tripling or quadrupling after the adaptation. What I can say is, the curious lack of cultural impact, a cancelled spin-off manga, and taking 6 years to get an anime doesn't bode well for the franchise's staying power. If the company was excited or confident in the franchise, development would have gone quicker, is all I'm saying. And judging by the end result, we can see why. Alright, Isekai Cheat Magician. It's got Isekai in the damn name, so obviously it is one. Nerdy dude, other world, adventure, amazing power. You know the whole shtick by now. Our protagonist is summoned to this world on his way to high school. This time though, he imported a waifu with him, so it wasn't just a dude, but a girl as well. Does that mean anything? You'd think adding 2 characters to the mix would innovate the formula somewhat, as now there's a female perspective. You know, 2 people with amazing power that could come into conflict with each other, and different sets of knowledge of our world to impart? No, she's still a side character and obvious romantic interest. Good. I'm glad she's superfluous. Otherwise I'd think Isekai was evolving in some way, and we can't have that. But where she's the brains and he's the bronze, he also fills the role of being familiar with game concepts, meaning he's doubling as our otaku type, while not being explicitly named one. Where the series tries to set itself apart from the rest is the whole realistic approach to magic that a more scientifically developed culture would bring, like applying physics to spell effects. Cool, that's actually interesting. I really like that concept. You know, when I saw it in Gate. Oh, did you forget about that subplot in that one, where the wizard applies our knowledge of physics to their magic system? I didn't. Our main character, despite that gimmick, isn't actually that smart. The premise of using physics to cheat at magic doesn't factor for him, and it's more for his waifu friend. So even the main premise for the series, the one thing that could set it apart, isn't even in play for the main dude. Honestly, him and the girl on roughly even footing and using modern knowledge to improve magic, that would fit the whole cheat aesthetic more. But I'm just some jackoff on the internet. What the hell do I know? As for the fantasy world, well, it's beyond generic. There's magic spells, monsters, adventurers guilds, swords, kings, elves, and anything else that comes to mind with a medieval fantasy. That means our protagonists slot in after the typical culture shock of, whoa, monsters, and switch to a we have to live here now mindset pretty easily. After some basic training, they join the Adventurers Guild and start their isekai adventure proper. It's that simple, as that's what people do when they get isekai'd. They become adventurers or heroes. And I realize there's no concrete reason for that. The series doesn't provide one, so that's all we're left with. It's just what people do. Going with the flow, I guess. But that's also just common as hell in isekai, and pretty damn cliche at this point. Good thing they did though, because our girl can use all the magic, and our dude is so strong he defies metrics. Enough to impress a well-renowned mage upon their first meeting. He's also different than a mage, since he uses spirits directly as opposed to asking them for power, meaning he's a sorcerer or unique magician? Did the title lie to me? I honestly can't really be asked to care at this point. With their knowledge of physics and immense magical power, they quickly learn how to cast spells under that mage's tutelage, soon making names for themselves as the strongest badasses in all the land, saving towns and countries and shit. So with that, our protagonist secures his role as super powerful. But does the world revolve around him? Considering he's trained by one of the strongest mages, made a spirit queen his familiar, beat a dragon, and the entire plot of the series seems to randomly focus on him specifically being there, with no clear explanation what makes him uniquely suited for that position? Yeah, definitely. Lucky for them, he's a benevolent dude. That just leaves the harem, because that's obligatory at this point. And with all that power, girls are flocking to him? Yeah, just check that off. Hot mage who wears barely anything, an elf swordsman who gets close to them for little reason, and his childhood friend who's a bombshell and already crushing on him at the start? And that's just within the first episode. Harem achieved. So what did Isekai Cheat Magician do for the genre? Not much, since it took just about everything from other series. There's barely a creative bone in this Frankenstein's monster of a franchise. But if pressed, I guess it relied more on the cheat aspect than others do. That phrase keeps popping up in Isekai, meaning that the character's power isn't fair for the world they're in. Like Ain's and Overlord casting spells beyond god tier, Naofumi's shield endlessly adapting in Rising of the Shield Hero, and the other heroes sent to a world in Konosuba being called cheaters for their overpowered gifts. Their powers are basically like cheating to the rest of the cast because they're so strong. Here though, it's almost taken for granted. And rather than showing him doing shit that's overpowered, he just starts calling it his cheats, despite not really doing anything with them. The series just sort of flat out winks and nods to the audience about it by flat out having the protagonist's first line in the series be,
"Here we go again. It always feels like I'm cheating."
That leans into the idea that isekai protagonist powers are broken. This is probably one of the few shows that actually tried to use that tired trope of calling something a cheat because it's beyond others' capabilities in the series, and put it into the marketing. I mean, the dude literally calls his powers cheats all the time because they're supposed to be busted, but I think that strategy has a drawback in the larger scope. Sure, it demonstrates that he's overpowered, but unlike other franchises that use their gimmicks in the title, this one isn't intriguing. It's not about a hero using only a shield, being overly cautious, or being the bad guy for a change. People looking at the name are immediately going to roll their eyes because the series flat out admits the protagonist isn't playing by the same rules as everyone else. Which, so what? That's just like every other isekai, and it sounds cheesy too. That's most likely why this series isn't regarded well, and why not many other isekai franchises wear that label so neatly on their sleeves. It's essentially telling the viewers not to care. If this series brought anything to isekai, it's a lesson. A lesson that you can wink as much as you want to the audience about your series being lazy, but that doesn't address the issue. When window dressing is all a franchise has to offer, cute girls in a power fantasy, it's not going to build a strong fanbase, and that certainly shows with the slow move to adaptation and a lukewarm reception. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and do all the other YouTube stuff to help the channel grow. You can also join my Discord with the link down in the description. And if you really want to support me, you can head on over to my Patreon to pick up some extra perks like voting on what I do next. And speaking of Patreon, I'd like to give a special thanks to Volcarona for their continued support. Thanks for watching.